Hi, today's lesson is on how to bread, and we're going to use a recipe using eggplant. If you've ever had eggplant, it's a purplish vegetable, and what you do is you have to take the green stem off and peel the eggplant, and after I peel it, then I'm going to slice it. So right now I'm going to just show you real quickly what you have to do to prepare the eggplant, and then I'll do some peeling it and slicing it. So I'm going to go to the sink and wash it off. And I'm going to dry it. It's a little easier to handle once it's dried. This is a purplish plant. The inside of it then will be very white, and it has a very interesting flavor. It can be used in a lot of different recipes, and Italians like to use this a lot. So I'm going to cut the top off, and you can see how white it is. So that's just getting the top ready. You can use a paring knife, which is the smaller knife if you want to, and that's one way to peel it. Using a paring knife. Some people like to use a vegetable peeler, and that goes very quickly too. There's not a right or wrong way on how to peel an eggplant. Just cut it in long strips.
Some people don't peel it.
And for this recipe, you do need to peel it. Sometimes you don't peel it, but that's not very often. Most of the time you peel that purple skin off. And then once we're done peeling, I will slice it, and the recipe says to cut it into sticks or half-inch slices, and I particularly I like it better slices. If you were going to use something like fish, you would have to dry that off. Fish is a very delicate type food. It falls apart very easily, so you want to take extra care with a fish when you're cooking with fish or breading fish. This will turn, it's kind of like an apple, and it turns when it gets to the air, it starts turning brown. So it's something that you need to work quickly on. So about a half-inch slice, like that. Okay, the eggplant is sliced, and like I said, these are about half-inch thick slices. It's kind of thick, but that's how this works best. It'll hold together better this way. And so I'm going to move over to this side. The recipe says to peel the eggplant, cut into half-inch slices or sticks. It says mix the beaten egg with the milk. So I need to crack my egg, and I use a knife to give it a tap. And then take my thumbs and break it apart. That way you don't get any eggshells or anything like that in there. To beat the egg, just take a fork and beat it up. Get the yolk and the egg white mixed in really good. This is what's going to hold the breadcrumbs onto the eggplant slices themselves. There are different ways to bread, but egg is a binder. It's a binding agent. When it's not cooked like this, when it's just in the raw state, it binds the breadcrumbs to eggplant. Now, the recipe says to take, and see, I always keep my recipes right with me so that I can read it and I know what I'm doing. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of milk to this. We use the measuring spoons, 1 tablespoon. And you mix that in together. And calls for breadcrumbs. So I'm going to use this little food chopper. It's one of my handy little tools I showed you the other day. Put the lid on, hit pulse. These breadcrumbs weren't quite as fine as what I like them to be. Now, I don't know if you can see how fine they are, but they're very fine. They're mixed very, very fine. So that's what you do with that. I want to get this out of the way. Okay, so that was 1 cup of breadcrumbs. It says dip the slices or sticks into the beaten egg and milk mixture, and then combine the flour, breadcrumbs, or cornmeal. So you have your choice, and I chose to use the breadcrumbs, and I made them very fine. Cornmeal's fine, so if you think of breadcrumbs, about as fine as cornmeal. Then you have your choice of some spices, and I'm going to put basil and oregano. It gives it just a little bit of an Italian flavor. 1/2 teaspoon of each one of these. Again, use your dry measuring. This is for dry or liquid measuring spoons. That was basil, and this is oregano. So I'll put those in there with the breadcrumbs. They also have thyme. If you're interested in thyme, you can do that. And we'll put those in a shallow pan. Nothing fancy, just a pan, because this is what you're going to coat your breadcrumbs with. Mix it up a little bit. Gives it a nice seasoning. And what they suggest, I'm going to see if I can do this. Yeah, this will work. Take a wire rack. Make a little bit of room here. And I did wash my hands before I started. So you're going to coat this in the milk mixture. And then you'll take and put it in the breading, because this is what's going to hold the breading onto the eggplant. And then the suggestion is to let it dry on a wire rack. It will stay together better. And when you cook them in the pan, fry them in the skillet, then the breadcrumbs will stay on better. So we'll leave them like that. Okay, the eggplants are all dipped in the egg and milk mixture, and then I put them in the breading mixture. What I'm going to do now is turn my skillet on. You want it on about a medium to medium-low heat, and I'm going to take calls for a tablespoon of butter melted into a tablespoon of vegetable oil. So this oil is canola oil, and we'll just put the two together. I have a non-stick skillet that I'm using, and I'm getting down to the end of my container here. So we'll let that start melting and heating up. Another way to bread, or sometimes you'll hear the word dredge, and it's D-R-E-D-G-E, and that is to coat meat like chicken or steaks, cube steaks, and you just roll them in flour, and the chicken needs to be dry when you do that. If you rinse it off and then you dry it, and then you roll it in the flour. And that's another way of coating. And you can bake it in the oven, you can skillet fry it, you can do different things with your chicken that way, or your meat, however you want to do it. Now what we do with this is to put the eggplants in here and let them cook until they're fry until they're tender. And we're not going to fry them at a very high heat. We want this, it takes a little while for the eggplants to cook clear through and get nice and tender. And so they'll get crispy on the outside. And I was mentioning another seasoning to use, and it's thyme, T-H-Y-M-E. This happens to be ground thyme, and it has a very, very definite smell to it. And I know you can't smell through the camera, but this is what it looks like when it's ground up. And I like to use the dried leaves, and it has a really nice flavor, but I didn't want to put this in the eggplant today, so that's what this other seasoning that you have an option to use. You could add all three of them if you wanted to. So, see if the skillet's just about ready, and you can see that the margarine and the oil have melted together, which is what we want. Now, the reason we put oil in with the butter is too high a heat will make that butter turn brown and burn. Butter burns quite easily, so you don't want that to happen. So I'm going to put them in here, and then the oil kind of keeps that from happening. And we'll do just enough to fill the pan. I really would suggest you try this. This is a very different kind of food. A lot of times you'll see eggplant lasagna. Italians use eggplant for a lot of different foods. So we'll let these start frying, cooking till they're nice and tender, and then I'll flip them. Okay? Okay, they've been cooking for a little bit, and they are ready to turn. And you can see they're nice and golden brown on the one side, not too brown. And they're going to cook on the other side till they're nice and tender. I did get out my spatter guard, and just in case they started really spattering, but they don't seem to be doing that. Nothing harder than cleaning up a kitchen countertop. These solid surface ones are a little bit easier to clean than the ones that have the rings with the drip pans underneath. So we'll let these cook a little bit longer, and then they'll be ready to serve. Okay, these are ready to come out of the skillet. So I'm going to take them and put them on a plate. And there are different ways you can top them with different things. Take this off the burner right now. And I'm going to put a little Parmesan cheese on it. Sometimes people want mozzarella or some tomatoes, but this makes a nice topping. And here you have your breaded, sautéed eggplant. It smells wonderful and it looks really nice.